Dear learners, today we are dealing with the topic methods and strategies of self-awareness. Let me quote the words of Billie Jean King before going into the details of the topic. Self-awareness is probably the most important thing towards being a champion. One of the most powerful creators of our reality is what we say to ourselves. The first and the most important step in developing your potential to the full is to have faith in self. With self-awareness, you will deeply understand how and why you operate, where you will uncover new layers of personal insight, free yourself from irrational fears, pave the way for inner boldness, and set the stage for true self-mastery. Let me tell you a story which explains the relevance of self-awareness. On a fine morning in a winter, a cat was walking along the banks of a river flowing through a thick forest. As she was enjoying the mesmerizing beauty of the rising sun, suddenly she heard a fretful wail from the meadow beside the river. The cat was stunned for a moment and then moved hurriedly towards the meadow. There she saw a cute little kitten shivering in the cold and screaming for help. The cat was very sympathetic to the kitten, took him to her home, cared and nurtured him as if he was her own younger one. However, the old kittens of the cat were not able to accept the newly adopted kitten. Thus, the little kitten was isolated and abandoned by others. As a result, it became an introvert and started to blame himself and his fate. One day, when the little kitten was going out of home, he saw a broken piece of mirror laying on his way. He took it in his arms and looked into it. To his great amazement, he saw his own reflection in the mirror, and he was astonished and stunned by what he had seen in the mirror. The question is, what might have the kitten saw in the mirror? Can you guess? Yes. Can it be a mouse, a cat, or a lion? Well, unfortunately, the social conditioning makes most people to see a mouse first. To see the cat is wonderful because of acceptance, acknowledgement, recognition, all super traits. However, as we are conditioned to see the flaws first, perhaps we see a mouse, not even the self. Only a super self let us to see the lion. Of course, each has its place. The cat looks into the mirror and believes to see a vicious lion, and that automatically gives it an attitude of a daring, brave and indomitable warrior, in which the lion is known to be. This builds an attitude within the cat of a lion. As a result, the cat develops the character of a lion, and the event of a battle that comes on the way of the cat, it would fight with an attitude of a lion. If you see yourself as a winner, you build the attitude of a winner, you develop the character of a winner, and that determines your step ladders and how you respond to challenges. Some among us look into the mirror and see a hopeless victim of a poor background. Seeing yourself in this way, you allow your character, attitude and even spirit to be shaped by the belief of what you see yourself to be. Let's go through the various elements of self-awareness. Self-awareness helps you know your motivations, preferences, personality and understanding how these factors influence your judgment, decisions and interactions with other people. Through self-awareness, one develops the ability to know how you are feeling and why, and the impact your feelings have on your behavior. Knowledge of our strengths, weaknesses, likes and dislikes enable us to know where we stand. Internal feelings and thoughts, interests, strengths and limitations values, skills, goals, abilities, leadership orientation and preferred communication style are just a few elements that self-awareness comprises of. Let us look at some of the key elements of self-awareness. The first one is innate personality. Personality is the sum total of an individual's psychological traits, characteristics, motives, habits, attitudes, beliefs and outlooks. Personality is generally defined as the deeply ingrained and relatively enduring patterns of thought, feeling and behavior. In fact, when one refers to personality, it generally implies to all what is unique about an individual, the characteristics that make one stand out in a crowd. The determinants of personality are heredity, environments and situations. Heredity simply refers to those factors that were determined at conception. Physical structure, facial attractiveness, gender, temperament, muscle composition and reflexes, energy level and biological rhythms are characteristics that are generally considered to be either completely or substantially influenced by who your parents are, that is by their biological, physiological and inherent psychological makeup. Then what are the environmental factors? The environmental factors that exert pressure on our personality formation are the culture in which we are raised, our early conditioning, the norms among our family, friends and social groups and other influences that we experience. The environment to which we are exposed plays a substantial role in shaping our personalities. And the third determines the situation. Situation influences the effects of heredity and environment on personality. An individual's personality, although generally stable and consistent, does change in different situations. The varying demands of different situations call forth different aspects of one's personality. Another element of self-awareness is motivators. And what are motivators? Motivators are the psychological drives that impel you to action. The self motives can be of four types. The first one is the self-enhancement motive, which leads people to elevate the positive of their self-conceptions and to protect their self-concepts from negative information. The motive is inferred from behaviors such as preferring downward social comparison, judging oneself as better than average on many dimensions, defining positive traits in terms of one's own abilities and attributing failure to external causes and success to internal causes. The second aspect of motivators are the self-assessment motive, which leads people to obtain a conceptually accurate evaluation of themselves. People seek diagnostic information regardless of its positive or negative implications for the self and regardless of whether the information affirms or challenges existing self-conceptions. Self-assessment is inferred from seeking feedback about performance, creating tasks that enable feedback, preferring diagnostic tasks and blaming self for failure. Then other motive is self-verification motive, which leads people to maintain consistency between their self-conceptions and new self-relevant information. This is inferred from behaviors like preferring self-consistent information and choosing interaction partners who verify one's self-image. And the fourth motive is the self-improvement motive, which leads people to improve their traits, abilities, skills, health status or well-being. This motive, seeking genuine improvement and personal growth, is inferred from behaviors such as actively approaching and coping with problems. A very important element of self-awareness is cognitive intelligence. It is the ability to reason, to build logical arguments from sensory evidence, to solve puzzles and problems and to make sense of the universe. A very important element in the modern behavior is emotional intelligence, the aspect of ourselves that enable us to make our way successfully in the world in terms of our relationship with others is called emotional intelligence. The element blind spots also play a very important role in knowing one's own awareness. Blind spots are the aspects of our personality or our behavior, usually negative, in which we remain stubbornly rigid in our attitudes, views and actions. The blind spot where others know information about yourself, however you do not know about yourself. This information can be in the form of body language, habits, mannerism, tones of voice, etc. The next element of self-awareness is biases. Biases are built-in problem-solving routines that inhibit judgment and decision making. Self-serving bias in humans' tendency to blame external forces when bad things happen and to give credit to ourselves when good thing happens. It evades personal responsibility for one's action. Self-serving bias is a defensive mechanism. The other elements of self-awareness include moral beliefs, ethical codes and passion. What we stand for in terms of right and wrong, that is morality, and how we enact those beliefs in our daily life, called ethics, and our passion that gives us effortless energy, enthusiasm and enjoyment affect our self-awareness. Our professional skill also is a part of self-awareness. The sum of our education, training and experience that you apply in your life influence your self-awareness. Resilience is another important element. It is our ability to sustain high level performance under stress. Capacity for service also gives awareness about ourselves. The degree to which we play our talents and skills, whether large or small, in the service of others have influence on our self-awareness. Another element of self-awareness is personal mission statement. Our mission statement captures our purpose, our vision, who we want to become and what we intend to accomplish. Self-esteem and self-efficacy also play a vital role in self-awareness. Self-esteem is your opinion of yourself. High self-esteem is a good opinion of yourself and a low esteem is a bad opinion of yourself. Self-efficacy is defined as people's beliefs about their capabilities to produce designated levels of performance that exercise influence over events that affect their lives. Self-efficacy beliefs determine how people feel, think, motivate themselves and behave. Let's move on to the topic methods of self-awareness. The first step in becoming aware of ourselves is to recognize our strengths, weaknesses, biases, attitudes, values and perceptions. There are many ways to enhance our self-awareness. Some of these include analyzing our own experiences, looking at ourselves through the eyes of others, self-disclosure, acquiring diverse experiences and increasing our emotional intelligence. The first method is the self-analysis process. Self-analysis requires people to examine themselves as an object in an experience or event. It requires a person to step back and observe the positive and negative impact that may have influenced behaviors, attitudes, thoughts and interactions. Another method of self-awareness is reflections. One of the means to gain insight about ourselves is through reflection. The self-awareness process should begin with self-reflection by exploring our thoughts and feelings associated with effective events. By reflecting on these feelings and thoughts, individuals can obtain new perspectives relevant to their lives based on these learning experiences. From obtaining new knowledge and perspectives, individuals can become more effective by implementing new behavioral and cognitive changes in future situations. Self-monitoring is also another method of self-awareness. By self-monitoring, we can assess our own behaviors and attitudes and diagnose which element we are satisfied with and identify, develop plans for addressing those aspects we want to change. By analyzing our own behavior also, we can be aware of ourselves. Analyzing behavior is the way in which we conduct ourselves, the way in which we act. Our behavior is influenced by our feelings, judgments, beliefs, motivations, needs, experience and opinions of others. Patterns of behavior develop through our actions and reactions to events over a period. Behavior consists of 4 components. The first one is motivation. What is motivation? Motivation means the drive to pursue one action over another. Being aware of our core drives, those things that motivate you positively or negatively, can help you understand the roots of your behavior and make adjustments necessary to modify your behavior for better. The next component is modes of thinking. The way you process the various inputs your brain receives. Being aware of how you take in and make sense of information can help you understand how you make judgments or decisions that lead to choosing one behavior or course of action over another. The next component of behavior is modes of acting, which is the course of action you apply in a given situation. Being aware of how you express your reactions to the things that happen to and around you can help you understand the alternatives available to you when certain events arises. The last component of behavior is modes of interacting. Being aware of how you communicate and work with others can help you understand how your preferred style meshes with those with whom you work and live. Another method of self-awareness is analyzing personality traits. We all know personality. Then what is personality? Personality describes the relative stable set of characteristics, tendencies and temperaments that have been formed by heredity and by social, cultural and environmental factors. These traits determine how we interact with and react to various people and situations. The Big Five model of personality have 5 primary components: extroversion, agreeableness, emotional stability, consciousness and open to experience. Extroversion represents the degree to which an individual is social or antisocial, outgoing or shy, assertive or passive, active or inactive, and talkative or quiet. A person who rates high for the first traits in these pairs is extroverted, while someone who rates high for the second traits is introverted. Extroversion or introversion in itself is not necessarily bad, but extremes at both at the ends of the spectrum can be equally dysfunctional. The next component in the Big Five personality trait is agreeableness. Agreeableness is a personality trait manifesting itself in individual behavioral characteristics that are perceived as kind, sympathetic, cooperative, warm and considerate. People who score high on these dimensions are empathetic, and while a low agreeableness score relates to self-behavior and a lack of empathy. Emotional stability characterizes the degree to which a person is consistent or inconsistent in how they react to certain events. Those who rate high on emotional stability is viewed as generally calm, stable, having a positive attitude, able to manage their anger, secure, happy and objective. Those who rate low are more likely to be anxious, depressed, angry, insecure, worried and emotional. The next personality trait is consciousness. It represents the degree to which an individual is dependable or inconsistent, can be counted on or is unreliable, follows through a commitments or are generally perceived to be careful, organized, persistent, achievement oriented and hardworking. Those who score lower on these dimensions are more likely to be viewed as less goal oriented and less driven by success. They also are more likely to engage in antisocial and criminal behavior. Openness to experience is the last trait. It characterizes the degree to which people are interested in broadening their horizons or limiting them, learning new things or sticking with what they already know, meeting new people or associating with current friends and co-workers, going to new places or restricting themselves to known places. Those score high on the first elements of these paired traits tend to be highly intellectual, broad-minded, curious, imaginative and cultured, and others tend to be narrow-minded, less interested in the outside world and uncomfortable in unfamiliar surroundings and situations. Another way of self-awareness is attitudes. Attitudes are evaluative statements or learned predispositions to respond to an object, person or an idea in a favorable or unfavorable way. Our attitude can determine whether we think positively and take control of a situation or think negatively and feel helpless to change or respond to a situation. When an attitude towards a situation or a subject is positive, the person tends to be receptive and makes an effort to understand. It brings optimism into life and makes it easier to avoid worry and negative thinking. If you adopt it as a way of life, it will bring constructive changes into your life and makes you happier, brighter and more successful. A person with a negative attitude develops barriers and filters, accepts data and ideas selectively. The person rejects, ignores, minimizes some things and exaggerates others and criticizes destructively. A negative attitude is self-defeating. Also of great concern is the fact that those who refuse to work on improving their negative attitude may slide into depression, self-pity and hopelessness. Charles Dickens wrote about a prisoner who stayed for many years in a dungeon. After serving his sentence, he got freedom. He was brought out from his cell into the bright day light of open world. But he felt uncomfortable with his newly acquired freedom and asked to bring him back to his cell into confinement. To him, the dungeon, the chains and the darkness were more secure and comfortable than accepting the change of freedom and the open world. Another method of self-awareness is analyzing self-motivation. What is self-motivation? It is the force that keeps pushing us to go on. It's our internal drive to achieve, produce, develop and keep moving forward. When you think you are ready to quit something or you just do not know how to start, your self-motivation is what pushes you to go on. The three keys to maintain a steady, high level of motivation are direction, action and repetition. A very common method of self-awareness is our inner voice. Our past experiences, even the things we do not usually think about, are all alive and active in our daily life in the form of an inner voice. Although most people do not hear this inner voice in the same way they would be a spoken one, in many ways it acts in a similar way, constantly repeating those original messages to us. For people with a healthy self-esteem, the messages of the inner voice are positive and reassuring. For people with low self-esteem, the inner voice becomes a harsh inner critic, constantly criticizing, punishing and belittling their accomplishments. Another method of self-awareness is knowing perceptions. What is perception? It describes the process by which individuals gather sensory information and assign meaning to it. When we encounter a person or situation, we use our senses to absorb various inputs and our brains interpret and evaluate the person or situation. Our perceptions are influenced by many factors such as our culture, environment, heredity, the media peers, past experience, intelligence, needs, emotions, attitudes and values. Others' perceptions about us are also important, and we can understand how we are shaped by others' opinion of us. This concept is referred to as social mirroring. By seeing ourselves through others' eyes, we can learn about our strengths and about areas in which we need improvements. Self-disclosure is another way of self-awareness. Another means of self-awareness is through self-disclosure, in which sharing your thoughts, feelings and ideas with others without self-deception and distortion. Self-disclosure is a key factor in improving self-awareness, as we can clarify our perceptions about ourselves with the help of others. The other way of gaining self-awareness is diverse experiences. Increasing self-awareness is through acquiring multiple experiences in diverse situations and with different people. Being open to experiences broadens our horizons. It helps us to see ourselves in a new light while giving us new information about ourselves and our ability to interact with the world. Then let's move to the various strategies that we can implement in order to gain more knowledge about ourselves, that means self-awareness. Some strategies to build self-awareness are practicing mindfulness, increasing self-awareness. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness is similar to self-awareness in that they both relate to consciously directing our thoughts inward in order to become more aware of our inner state of being, to observe our thoughts and beliefs, and to notice what triggers our emotions as they rise and fall. Mindfulness includes focused attention in the moment to whatever one is doing and involves practices such as meditation or a quietening of the mind. Listening can also increase our self-awareness. Getting out of us by focusing on another person is a good antidote to stop downward spirals of self-destructive thinking. By being open to someone else, we can learn to listen objectively, even lovingly, to what that person wants to or needs to share. This in turn helps us to listen to our own inner dialogues and opinions objectively and lovingly as well. Another strategy is openness to new perspectives. All of us tend to have different perspectives on a variety of topics, but as we develop these perspectives, we get comfortable with them and prefer our own opinions. However, limited perspectives lead to limited thinking. So, by being open to the views of others, we can expand our perspectives to be more universally inclusive. New ideas are refreshing and stimulating, opening our thinking in new and possibly promising directions. Open-mindedness is definitely a plus in being successful at dealing with life's challenges and diverse situations. A very effective strategy of self-awareness is journalizing and personal narrative. Your life story is a fundamental component of your personality. Psychologist Dan McAdams says, the stories we tell ourselves about our lives don't just shape our personalities, they are our personalities. Telling your story, releasing your voice on paper, dreaming up your fantasy situations are some of the ways your subconscious can speak to you, revealing what is really the matter. Let your mind be free and marvel at what it may reveal about you and some of your buried wounds that are crying out for healing. Work with some of these ideas to explore what is behind them with the intention of knowing yourself more intimately. Feedback helps to be more self-aware. Since we are our own best audience, we may miss something in our self-appraisal. That is where the objectivity of others can be most helpful in self-assessment. If you have the courage, ask a friend or acquaintance their opinion of you, or ask about how you managed some project or worked on together on how you handled yourself in some strange situation. Constructive criticism is best of course, but try to be resilient and willing to hear what they have to say. Our personal vision is another strategy where we can be aware of ourselves. Invest time to clarify personal vision for the future. If we wander through life without purpose or direction, we will end up nowhere in particular. In order to form an intention, you really need some idea about what is important to you and what you hope to accomplish. Say it out, your intention, loud and proud, remembering that you are speaking to your inner self, perhaps your higher consciousness. Let your subconscious know that you want to better understand your inner mind so that you can live a more meaningful and satisfying life. Self-reflection is another strategy of gaining self-awareness. Take time each evening to reflect on your behavior for the day. How do you perceive yourself? How do others perceive you? What can I learn from observing my behavior today, etc. Personal values are the core values or answers the questions what is important to me. When you become aware of your personal values, you can evaluate if you are living in accord with them. Another method or strategy of gaining self-awareness is observation. We are all more alike than we are different. In observing other people, we can often learn a great deal about our behavior. A very important strategy is lean into your discomfort. One of the best strategy to gain self-awareness is to lean into your discomfort. One of the biggest obstacles to self-awareness is our tendency to avoid discomfort. Things you do not think about are off your radar for a reason. They can sting when they surface. Rather than avoiding a feeling, your goal should be to move toward that emotion, into it, and eventually through it. This can be said that for even mild emotional discomfort like boredom or confusion, when you ignore or minimize an emotion, you miss an opportunity to do something productive with that emotion. The surprising thing about self-awareness is that just thinking about it will help you change. Do remember to watch you like a hawk. Hawks soar above the ground and watch what happens below them. For a moment, disengage from your emotions and look down at what you are doing. You can practice by noticing your emotions, thoughts and behaviors right as the situation unfolds. The goal is to slow you down and take in the bigger picture. Let us conclude the topic. Self-awareness is the ability to take an honest look into our life without any attachment to it being right or wrong, good or bad. It is an individual's gift to appreciate the strengths and weaknesses of one's own character. Realizing this will enable one to make apt choices and decisions in life that are consistent with one's own abilities. Self-awareness gives you the capacity to learn from your mistakes as well as your successes. It enables you to keep growing. The most fundamental harm one can do to oneself is to stay ignorant by not having the courage and humility to look into oneself honestly and gently. Abraham Maslow said that what is necessary to change a person is to change his awareness of himself. If you are willing to analyze objectively, identify, accept and act on your strengths, you will be able to offset any limitations and succeed in life. Ideas rule the world and thoughts rule your life. You become what you contemplate. If you think yourself weak, weak you will be. If you think yourself strong, strong you will be. The toning for weakness is not brooding over weakness, but thinking of strength. It is your idea which molds you, your destiny. Believe in the power of thoughts for change. Banish all self-doubts, resentments, guilt feelings, complexes, and you will find strength, vitality, joy and success come rushing in and literally flooding you with outstanding achievements. Eventually, one who wins is the one who thinks and believes he can. Let me wind up in the words of Michael de Monde. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Have a great day. Thank you very much.